everyone. Today we have our another new episode, and we will discuss on our personal robots, the next consumer big things. We have our world famous scientist, Mr. David Jekali. So, David Jekali, what you want to discuss about the question: Are personal robots the next consumer big things? What do you think? And especially from emerging economy, as I am right now, I'm in Bangladesh. We are heavily communicating with lot of corporations. They have to understand that how this robotics can help their corporation.
Well, so first of all, when you start talking about like individual consumer robots, I don't think that's going to come like next year. Uh, we have seen some of that already, though. More more on uh, more specific robots, though. So it's been very popular, like the Roomba and other various knockoffs. From vacuum cleaners to mops. I've seen like a gutter cleaner robot, and there's a lot of interesting platforms for building them, whether that's things like the Roomba or platforms like I think Segway used to have a personal robot platform that you could get and build your robots around, and there's lots of things in business we see like telepresence robots and that sort of thing, but you haven't seen really mass consumer adoption past uh, drones and the robot vacuums, and I don't think the technology is quite there to see it in the immediate future. I think generally, or historically, it takes a good 10 years, and that may speed be faster nowadays, but 10 years for a product to um, uh, get mass adoption on a large scale, and for personal robots, they aren't. Uh, Sophisticated enough yet to really be generic. For us to see something like uh, a personal robot that could cook and clean and you know go shopping or drive your car or this kind of thing. Uh, we've still got a ways to go. I think most of the pieces are there. If you look at like um, Tesla's robots or some of the other kind of cute Android sort of robots. Uh, they're they're getting there in terms of function, um, but the AI hasn't caught up, and um, they'll need to use more of general AI to have robots that'll be not just mass adopted, but also just generally functional across uh, a wide range of things. If you like, if I had a personal robot, I'd want it to besides cook and clean and go shopping and mow the lawn and take the garbage out, and there's just all kinds of crazy stuff that I would want it to do. Excuse me. And they're just not there yet, so it'll be a while. So no, I don't think consumer robots will be the next big thing on the consumer level, at least for a few years.
Okay, thank you. What are the key features that make personal robot more effective, or what your thought about the features of personal robot?
Well, I mean, that depends on how generic it is. If you mean personal robots that clean the floor, the key features are going to be the vacuum cleaner, and then you kind of build around that, whether it's charging itself or emptying itself, or, how it traces out room or something like that. But when you look at features that you might want in a human-like robot, there it's we're really talking about general intelligence to be smart enough to be able to do generic. You know, if you want a robot and you want to say, "Hey, go make me a cup of coffee," but you're at someone's house, that's actually a really difficult problem to be able to go in to any random kitchen, find a cup, heat some water up, turn on a coffee maker or make an espresso or whatever it is to get the coffee into a cup and then bring that back to you so you can drink it. That's a really a difficult problem, and we're just now getting to the point of being able to make software systems smart enough that could potentially do that sort of thing. And um, I think that's the kind of feature set, though, that we expect. Maybe we've been spoiled by science fiction or other sources like that from fiction that have given this idea of these really advanced robots. But I think that's what it's going to take to really get people interested, in terms of features and driving mass adoption.
Okay, thank you. My next question: how do personal robots differ from other consumer electronics currently on the market?
Well, I would say that one of the big differences is going to be the scope of the features. When you talk about electronics that are currently out there, like whether it's a phone or a camera or a toy, it's got a very narrow set of functionality versus a personal robot that, again, getting back to that feature set where I'm able to say, ask it to go get me a cup of coffee, but every day I'm in it, it's a different kitchen and everything is in different places, and it's just a massive problem for a system to be able to decompose everything needed to assemble the coffee based on a random kitchen. The level of sophistication for something to do that is huge compared to uh, even an iPhone. And an iPhone is a fairly complicated piece of equipment, especially if we start looking at everything that's gone into systems to make them as miniature and functional as they are. And that's just not even close compared to what that robot would need to do.
Thank you. My next question: what are the potential benefits and drawbacks of integrating personal robots into everyday life? Like, what do you think?
Well, I think the benefits are it could save a lot of time. I mean, uh, it would be an enormous help for me to be able to have a personal robot to do housework, to go shopping, to mow the lawn. Not that I have a lot of grass in my yard, but maybe some weeding, taking the garbage out, maybe even helping with my job, talking about maybe have the AI write some database queries or something like that. There's just all kinds of stuff that I'd love to be able to have it do, and I think it would really optimize the what I do during the day. And I think going back to that, I don't think people realize how useful it would be unless you've had like a secretary. If you've had a secretary or a personal assistant or someone that really optimizes what you do in a particular role, it's I think hard to understand how useful it would be unless you've had that experience. And a personal robot would be like having a secretary 24/7, which would be just phenomenally useful, although it would also be mind-numbingly expensive if that was a person. You'd have to probably hire at least 3 people to rotate. Um, and having a robot that could do all that stuff for you would just it would just be amazing. Uh, yeah, at least for me, it would be a huge impact, and I don't think people realize how much of an impact they could have.
Mhm. Thank you. Dr. Tamanna, what you want to discuss about today's questions? Are personal robot the next consumer big things? What do you think?
Yeah, actually, I guess I mean, the personal robots could do a lot of could be of lot of help to in the household, for example. I mean, there could be, we have at the smaller level, we have, started in even in the developing world, like Alexa and all these kind of things are still there. The mobiles, i14, i15. But cleaning and maintenance tasks, for example, I mean, in the developed world already all these things have started. Even in India, for example, the richer section is resorting to personal robots as far as this is concerned. So security and surveillance, I mean, the high tech cameras and sensors of security and surveillance robots monitor activities inside and around the house, offering the house owner a lot of peace of mind, because that security cannot be provided by human beings, because that captures minute details of a for example, any entry into the house. So yeah. And then it can be a source of entertainment, for example, older people. I mean, I have heard a lot, like many of them do not have friends, for example, and so they resort to the domestic helps to entertain them. So I guess rather than paying them for this particular entertainment, they could have robots as friends, for example. I mean, I guess there should be a fiction on this. And then healthcare, for example, the old people need a lot of healthcare, and so do anybody who is on bed, for example. So, for example, for the older people, when they are unable to get out of the bed or something, they could be of immense help. So I guess that is true. And so I mean, and I mean, the feminist movement would be extremely excited about personal robots, because probably we should have a fiction on how robots could give birth to a baby, if that's possible. So the feminist movement would be excited about it, and they will really want to see something like that happening. And why not? We can have something like that. Why should we have surrogacy, etc.? Why not have a robot doing that? So yeah. And window cleaners, for example, and as I mean, as we have already discussed, they could help in gardening, for example, I mean, growing new plants and suggesting, this is the kind of environment and this is the kind of stuff we need. Then educational robots, children could be made to be taught by these robots, so the parents who like now we have both, for example, even in the developing world we have women who are working outside, and they aren't able to take care of their children. So I guess robots could play with them as well as help them in doing their routine homeworks and classworks. So that would be very interesting to consider. And yeah, so domestic robots automated tasks such as cleaning floors, pool cleaning, gardening, providing security and surveillance, all these things are extremely important works. These are the drudgeries which women have to do, I mean, at least in the developing world and also in the developed world, for example. So I mean, these are many of the feminists would say it's drudgery. So, these kind of works which are extremely boring could be helped by the robots, leaving behind humans to do more specific and important works. That's what are my opening comments. Yeah.
Thank you. Professor David J. Kelly, what industries and or sectors tend to be disrupted the most by rise of personal robotics?
Well, it's hard to say which field hadn't, given that it hasn't happened yet. Uh, it's hard to say which field will be disrupted the most. I think Dr. Tamana had mentioned a few things uh, that I think are particularly interesting that they would be really impactful in. I think in terms of education and in terms of medical aid and support, I think those are two where there's a lot of impact. I think having a one-on-one tutor that is smart enough to evolve around what a child's needs dynamically on the fly, and to be a friend, something that could be with them 24/7, I think is just uh, I don't think we can exaggerate how much impact that could potentially have on the education of children. Uh, and then in terms of the medical need, there are lots of people that need um, medical help, that they just can't afford it. They don't, their insurance doesn't cover it, whatever the issue is. But they need someone to come in and um, do help them medically, just whether it's procedures that need to be done daily, or PT that they need to work on. There's just all kinds of ways that it would have a lot of impact on people.
Thank you. Dr. Tamanna, what you want to discuss? If you open your camera, that will be helpful for us. Yeah, Dr. Tamanna
Yes.
Kushwaha.
What is the question? Sorry.
Uh, my last question, what industries or sectors tend to be disrupted the most by the rise of personal robots?
Disrupted.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess a lot of disruption would happen. For example, I mean, in India, we have a burgeoning tuition sector. So, if children are being taught by the robots, the tuition market is going to suffer a lot, and, that employment which they get out of it, for example, we have our lot of um, what do you say, cities where students study for civil services, or they study for IITs, Indian Institute of Technologies, or they study for medicine. And if these very important subjects are taught by robots, then you can understand what will happen to the market, because it's a multi-million market which is being run by tuition centers. I mean, in every nook and corner of our cities, Delhi, for example, you see, IAS being taught, and those kind of things. But if a personal robot, the cost to the household would be reduced, and also the child would get immediate help as far as education is concerned. So that would result in a fall of employment for the tutors. So yeah, that's then medicine, for example, the doctors are going to suffer, because if all these prescriptions etc are done by robots, probably I mean, people who are rich enough to have a robot which is a doctor, you know I mean, has been fed chips which are of a doctor. That would be a very difficult thing for the medical doctors. They'll be replaced. So and if the surgeries are performed by them, then why do you need the surgeon? So many of these things are there. How domestic helps. The ones which we need. Probably as entertainers or as help, they would be replaced. So many of such things, education in this at the most junior most level where children are being taught, when they're like 3 4, if they start interacting with the personal robots, that would lead to a lot of like displacement of teachers at the lower level, because people would be like, we don't need any of them. So, I mean, if suppose, for example, in law, lawyers are replaced, if one robot is pitted against the other robot, and, I mean, the Chief Justice of India is like listening to the two robots. So, that would be another difficult thing, for the lawyers, because the whole market is going to crumble. So many of these things are there. I mean, obviously, there would be a massive change by 2050 if we can imagine. I mean, we'll see that markets worldwide would be totally different, and so that's the whole thing. So I think that it's going to lead to a lot of displacements. Yeah.
Thank you. Professor David Jekali, what are the major challenges that need to be overcome for personal robots to become widely adopted by consumer? What are the challenges?
Well, it might need to start by actually having general consumer robots that would do something useful, and that isn't there yet. We only have really specific cases, whether it's the Roomba or Alexa, um, and I think we still have some engineering to go before we see something that's capable of doing that. And until that happens, we're not going to see large scale adoption as tutors or medical support or secretaries or house cleaning, or getting a consumer robot that could do all of that stuff. That's a long ways out. It um, I mean, I would guess 10 years, really. And until that work has been done to get the robots to be smart enough and flexible enough to do this kind of stuff, it's just not going to happen. You're not going to see any adoption until they get there.
Thank you. Dr. Tamanna, what you want to discuss about this question?
Yeah, I guess Professor Kelly is right. It's not going to happen suddenly. It's going to take a lot of technological developments and scientific development in this field, and it's going to take around. I mean, that's what I said. Around 2050, we'll be able to, see ourselves moving towards space, and our technology is going to be so developed whereby we would be able to deal with many of the diseases which people are suffering right now. And so I guess, let me just, Professor said around 2010 years. I'm still giving it a leap of 2050. So by then, probably we'll have a better, I mean, obviously, training the robots to do cleaning, etc. 10 years, yeah. But as far as like home health is concerned, surgeries, or helping in the space travel, space walking, etc. That's going to take some time, still. And the robots helping humans to settle in space, that would take some time, so I guess that's the only thing I have to say.
Dr. Tamanna, what's your closing remarks for today's session?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, it's really interesting to see how robots have developed over the period of time, and how how much they can progress. I mean, at least we can see as of now, they can be of massive help to human being, but it can also lead to a lot of problems. So we have to consider both the pros and the cons of the robots, and humans itself themselves would have to consider this particular fact that probably not everything can be performed by, and for example, soul is unique to human beings. So that can't be replaced. So for example, ethicality of something or empathy towards something, probably that those things are there, something which a robot cannot perform. So humans are there to live. We can't have the earth full of robots, and we have had movies like that, films which have featured, like, the fight between robots and humans. So I mean, to consider that vision, in mind, we have to see that uh, there should not be any, we have to be very careful what we feed into a robot. So yes, that's what my closing remarks.
Thank you. Professor David Jekali, what's your closing remarks for today? And if you have any advice for industry in Asia, you can share with our audience.
Well, I think just as a closing remark, I think we still have a long ways to go before we see general robotics that are consume adoptable at the consumer level. I think we'll see a lot of specialized stuff, and we'll continue to see improvements, like with the ROM or digital assistants on the computer, or things like that. But I think we've still got a ways to go before we can see systems that would be consumer ready for mass adoption. I think advice to industry, I think, would be to focus on things that are profitable, and if they have R&D they can use on robotics in specific areas. I think if you're looking for where to invest for what will evolve into or help speed up the kind of robotics that we've been talking about, I think that's going to be in stuff related to cognitive architectures and large language models and these kinds of AI, as well as specific verticals like the vacuum cleaner, or lawnmower robots, or things like that. And those would be great places to invest in the time being, before we get to the point of having robots that we can see adopted at a mass level.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you for your excellent contribution. Thank you, Professor David Jekali, and thank you, Dr. Tamanna, for your continuous support for World Talent Economy Forum. I request all of our audience, please share our content as much as possible. Thank you. Bye-bye and take care.
Bye, guys.